The fates really did seem to play a hand in so much of what Geelong was able to conjure. The coach, well, he is our longest serving, Robbo. He took up residency with us in 2016, and we always hope this Monday night might come. Chris Scott, congratulations and welcome back to 360.
Thanks so much, Gerard. I think this is going to be one of my best episodes ever, even though the voice is a bit croaky.
That Selwood goal, where were you for that?
Do you mean where was I physically?
Yeah.
Well, I think I was in the box. My recollection is that I was at the front of the box. I hadn't seen any of that vision. They might have been looking at the second row, but I didn't see myself either. But I remember what was happening in my head at the moment, or in that moment. And even watching it back now, I got a tinge of emotion that I felt in that moment as well. I was a bit similar to Britt, Joel's wife, in the crowd. It really got to me. It was such a nice moment.
Yeah, man, well done. Congratulations, Chris. It's been I'm sure you've had a fantastic last 48 hours. The emotion surrounding Joel Selwood, and as much as you love Joel and you know Joel and what he does for the footy club and for the community, have you been amazed at the outpouring of emotion towards your captain?
I think I haven't quite heard it all, Robbo, so I've really probably been a little more self-indulgent than I have been in the past with this one, in that I've just tried to enjoy the last couple of days with sort of close family and friends and the people at the Cats, and I have to take my time to sort of absorb what others are saying about it, but I know enough to know that people can see the way he goes about his business, like it's a symbolic gesture, I know, but it sums up Joel, that in one of the greatest moments of his life, he continues to think about others, to give your boots to the NAB Auskicker. And there are stories within the club as well, like he's sending flowers to staff, and he just doesn't make it about him. It's one of the things I admire about him, and would like to be a bit more like myself, I guess.
We've shared a lot of days with you, Chris. The ones that come instantly to mind are after campaigns have ended, and they've ended torturously, ever so close. And now you've achieved it for a second time. Have you got the right sentiment? Have you got the right words as to what it means to you?
No, I think that's going to take a little bit of time. I'm still really driven. I was prepared to say early in the preparation for this year, so pre-Christmas, that I was actually feeling a lot more optimistic and enjoying the job a bit more than probably I had in previous years, and COVID had a lot to do with that. Everyone understands that part, but I do have to say that it does feel like it's been a very long and difficult journey to get to this point, and that's the risk you take when you are a participant in elite level sport. You know that there are going to be more down times than up times, but it's all worth it to experience that one moment. So I'm really proud of the consistency we've had over a 10-year period. I'm really proud of the group that we've put together, given the constraints of equalisation, even compared to the great Geelong sides of sort of 07, 9, 11. We built this one differently, and it has been contrarian. It has been difficult for some people to understand, and I completely get that. But I'm just so pleased for those people that they can enjoy this moment.
I know you don't listen to the outside noise, Chris, and it's part of who you are, and it's part of football. And I was one, and others were saying it. At the start of the year, when you mentioned it, can Chris Scott change his coaching? Can he change the group's thinking from defence, and quicken it up? And I went down the highway and sat in your office early in the year, and you spoke about what you hoped to do. And 25 weeks later, that was achieved. And there was much change made at the start of the season, which was well documented. At the end, when you say you were a bit self-indulgent, was it you actually reflect and say, my God, what I've been able to do, what I've been able to change with the help of others, but what I've been able to change and achieve, does that make it the most special day of your football career, perhaps?
Yeah, this is the most special for me. And, I mean, you reference kind of what people have said about us, you know, including you. I don't think I've ever really had the mindset that I wanted to argue with that. In fact, it's been the opposite. You laid out logical reasons why it might be tougher for us this year, and equalisation. There haven't been many clubs that have been able to stay right up the top for a long period of time. So, logic would suggest that it would be difficult for us to be one of those as well. But what we have done, and I think it's fair to say that I'm proud of the fact that we just made a commitment to be true to ourselves and take the time to work through our decision-making process really thoroughly, and commit to it, and not be influenced by what those on the outside were thinking. And again, that doesn't mean that we disagreed with them necessarily. It was just that if we thought there was any chance to work, we had to back ourselves and really commit to the plan.
Why were you so convinced, Chris, that you could still bring this to fruition? So at the end of the preliminary final last year, you referenced 2010. You did it, I think, unprompted. Clean sheet, build it again. You've done the same from the end of Empire and win the next Premiership. Why did you believe you could still do it, and that there wasn't the idea that a fresh voice was required?
I think because I thought really hard about it. It wasn't a flippant remark. I'd like to think that I do the requisite level of soul searching every year, and probably the most important thing to me at Geelong is that I make sure I'm doing what's right for the club, and if that means what's best for me is different to what's best for the club, then so be it. So I did think really hard about it. Whether we could do it, and if we couldn't, we needed to change tack, and maybe part of that change involved me. But by the time the end of the season rolled around, I was committed, and I was sure that with the good people we had around, that we could put a plan together that would give our guys a chance. And that's sort of the back office stuff. But probably the part that gave me the most confidence was when I spoke to our players, and that reminded me of 2010, because I was really nervous and apprehensive coming into Geelong as a 34-year-old coach. But in the first month or so, when I spoke to the key players, they gave me a sense of calm that came from their drive and their commitment. And I saw the same thing at the end of 21. I think there are so many stories that reflect that. Paddy Dangerfield and Joel Selwood are probably as good as any. Like, they were certain that they could play better in 22 than they did in 21, and they delivered in spades.
So how straightforward was the conversation you might have had, say, with them? Did you ask them straight whether they thought you were still the person?
You put me on the spot. It's probably a good time to get me after a couple of drinks. Yeah, I'll just be honest. Yeah, I did. Absolutely. And that's the relationship we've always had. And I made it hard for them. I said, if you have any doubt at all, you have to tell me. And it was a bigger group than just Joel and Pat. I'm not going to name those guys, but I've done a version of that almost every year, I think. But the end of 21 in particular, they were emphatic, and that support was the basis for my drive in 22.
So the obvious question is, so you would have walked, Scotty, if Patrick or Tom Hawkins or specifically Joel, your captain, who you've gone to battle with so much, if Joel said, would you have walked as coach?
Yeah.
When you walked
I hesitated. But it was more than them, and I just don't think it's fair to talk about the other players, because they're a lot younger, and it was a private conversation. I rarely talk about these things, but as I said, I've had a couple of drinks and I like me to.
Hey, mate, I was in the rooms when you came in on the weekend, and the best part about grand final day for the players anyway is to be on the ground, and for the next group of people is to look when they all pour into the rooms. The noise when they come in is so unlike any other noise in the world, I reckon. And you led the players in. You got there a couple of minutes beforehand. Someone told me you hugged a bloke at the door. I saw that. You hugged Stephen Wells. You hugged Kevin Dickerson. You had a hug-a-thon. Someone told me you went into the room at the back of the change rooms and you yelled out, you bellowed something. Is that true? And it was just you by yourself?
Yeah, it's true. It's probably the reason my voice is a bit croaky now. Yeah, it felt... This is probably a bit excessive, but it felt like breathing out for the first time in 10 years, in a way. It wasn't planned. It came out before I knew it, but yeah, it was a release of a bit of tension, and it's just one of the great. I'm seeing some footage of it here. I was a little overwhelmed at that point, and I went in there. I didn't realise the camera was there, to be honest. It's a bit embarrassing. But I went in to grab my phone so I could try to find my wife and my daughter. They have a hard time. All coaches' wives and families do. So it's completely asymmetric during the season. If you win, they feel relieved that I'm going to be semi-normal for a couple of days. But if we lose, they know how bad it's going to be. It was a bit of that sort of stuff going through my head, and I went to grab my phone so I could find them. But the moment got to me a little bit.
You said something then, and I really want to dig deeper. It was like relief after 10 years, Chris. And as Geelong got close but wasn't able to get over the line, and you took over a really good team in 2011, but you're 10, and you brought them together. But I don't think people have given you the credit of being a premiership coach. Now, 10 years later, when you say it was a sigh of relief, was there any of that relief, the fact that, hey, I built this list, I built this environment? Was that part of the 10 years of breathing? I can finally take a breath?
Not really, to be honest. Like 2011, I'm more than happy to give the credit to the right people through that period, but we changed a lot, and I feel completely comfortable with that part. You know me well enough to know that I'm not going to explain all the reasons why I feel that way, but every year's been different. We've been really consistent. We've given our people a chance every year, but we also knew that we took a huge risk with the strategy that we undertook. Even if you compare those teams, they were built off the back of blue chip talent. Early picks, Gary Ablett, Matty Scarlett, Tom Hawkins' father sons. We haven't done it this way. It's contrarian, it's been unorthodox, and really it was unlikely. So that was more what it was about. This was a potentially risky strategy, but we decided in 2010 that we were going to try to rebuild while staying in contention. And I drove that as much as anyone, but I knew in the back of my head there's a very good chance this isn't going to work. So to get there, whatever it is, 10 or 11 years later, that was probably more the sense that I had, rather than diminishing anything that I achieved in 2011.
So 16 wins in a row to claim this flag, Chris, is something that you lived as a player and now you've orchestrated as a coach. I'm curious, how gratifying to have the team play so well in the moment of decision?
Yeah, I think that's the other part, Gerard, that we have put a plan in place over the last 5 years or so with the aim of being at our best when it counted, and it just hasn't worked out that way. And I've never been more acutely aware of the role that luck and chance and all those sort of things have in getting yourself in great shape towards the end of the year. So I acknowledge that now too. A lot of things did fall our way, but it was also off the back of some meticulous planning, and we learned from previous years and just kept iterating and you know, it was still, you know, long odds to absolutely get it right. But yeah, the way it played out on Saturday was, I couldn't have forecasted. I couldn't have forecasted that last couple of weeks going as well as they did.
When did you allow yourself to think we're going to win this?
The three-quarter time I went down thinking we just want to stay on task here and not get too carried away, but I think Joel was sure. So I kind of backed him in a little bit, and it wasn't really until I got in the lift to go back up to the box after three-quarter time that I actually got a bit emotional there with Sean Grigg and James Kelly and Nigel Lappin, because it did sort of sink in that we'd done it. Up until that point, I refused to let myself believe.
So many storylines, Scotty, from the game, and you just gave us another one. And how you'd pay money to be a fly on the wall in that lift, just for whatever the 20 seconds it when to go up. From the outside and looking in at the club, it's the players that the fans adore and people have relationships with. To see Tom Hawkins, the emotional Tom Hawkins, to see what Patrick Dangerfield did to finally achieve a premiership after so long in the competition. I mean, these adults, these senior players, your core players, when you reflect now, and you've spoken about it with them for the last 2 days, what do you think? What do you talk to them about?
Well, those guys, as you say, there are so many different stories. Those guys that have been around for a long time, and Mitch Duncan, Tom Hawkins, Joel Selwood, I think they're the only three that played in 2011. Mitch was the sub in that game. I think we do reflect over the journey. Cam Guthrie and I came to the club at exactly the same time, at the end of 2010. So for him to get his premiership after an outstanding career, and just really consistent, great Geelong person. So that they're more conversations that we have about the journey. But I'm enjoying just as much the time spent with Sam DeConing and Tyson Stengel and the guys that are really new and hopefully are going to be a part of a long journey, with or without me, but certainly with Geelong. And even the young players that were a part of, I just loved having those guys in the room. Cooper Stevens, Cooper White, Toby Conway, those guys that didn't get the opportunity to play in the game, but have seen firsthand how good it can be. And I think that's going to really drive them and us through the pre-season. Like Max Holmes, it was a bitter pill to swallow for all of us with Max. So I guess my thought goes to how can we do everything we can to give him a chance to be back here next year.
So the summer wardrobe is going to be bought in the Cat shop. The queue was an hour long yesterday, Scotty. So T-shirts and caps and hoodies and scarves and beanies. So summer and winter. I wonder what the hottest piece of some merchandise is going to be. What do they say? Merchandise where the real money from the movie is made.
Gotten on to a great job with that stuff. I can't wait to load up. My 9-year-old is a complete convert now. So if she wasn't already, then she's going to get one of all of that stuff.
She was beautiful in the parade on Friday, Scotty. She was just fantastic. You know how footy's intense? She made it not intense on Friday. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, it's probably an off-air conversation for us because it can sound a bit trite, I know, when you start talking about your family. Of course, you love your family, but my girls have made it so much easier for me, especially over the last year. COVID was actually great for us. The first lockdown in 2020 was 8 weeks of us together, and I got to know my daughter more in those 8 weeks than I had the previous 5 years, I reckon. And when I talk about the cost of coaching, that's more, as much as anything, what I'm referring to. So again, like to see the joy that this brings them just makes it worthwhile, because it is, as I said, there is a cost to it.
We always hoped this Monday night would come, Chris. Thank you for being part of it. Congratulations. You didn't disappoint us. Well done.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Well done, Scotty.
Chris Scott, the Premiership coach, a second time
well
over
done
with the Cats, with us on 360.